I'll just be talking about optic neuritis and the changing paradigms that are happening with time, and I hope we can finish up in time. Uh, we know optic neuritis is inflammation of the optic nerve, which can present as papillitis or a retrobulbar neuritis. And occasionally they present with neuroretinitis, but essentially that is not considered to be a demyelinating. So we'll try and restrict ourselves to papillitis and retrobulbar neuritis, which are the most common presentations, which will typically present us with a uniocular involvement, predominantly in the young age group between 20 to 50 years, more likely to be in females. But the key factor we must remember, it is acute vision loss, mildly painful, which the pain may increase on eye movements over hours to days. So the vision loss is over hours to days. It is not uh, very sudden that it is just over a very short period of time. The vision loss may proceed for a few hours to days, and it may be very variable from very mild vision loss to complete vision loss, and the peak vision loss occurs within 2 weeks. It may remain stable for a week more and then starts improving. In unilateral cases, there will be an RAPD, and the fundus, as discussed, can be a papillitis or an absolutely normal RBN. If it's a typical optic neuritis, it's more likely to be due to multiple sclerosis, and now more likely possibilities being neuromyelitis optica. And of course, it does not rule out the possibility of infectious or other causes responsible for the optic neuritis. Optic neuritis with multiple sclerosis is important to know because optic neuritis may be the presenting feature in 50% of patients with multiple sclerosis, and of course may go on to involve maybe the presenting feature in 20% and may go on to involve almost 50% of MS patients. Atypical optic neuritis, on the other hand, is something that is like sudden loss. It is painless in age group which is not typical, like older patients, bilateral involvement, severe disc edema, or a lot of hemorrhages, progressive loss of vision more than 2 weeks, or it is not improving on treatment. A recurrent cause of vision loss also becomes atypical, or if it does not present with an RAPD in a unilateral case. So it's not that atypical may not be due to demyelination, but it's more likely that you should think of other causes like infective, compressive, or vascular. So typical presentations, think of isolated idiopathic or MS related optic neuritis. Atypical presentations, start thinking of the other causes more than demyelinating, like NMO, MOG, autoimmune, and post-vaccination, or any other cause that may be responsible for the optic neuritis. The diagnosis essentially remains clinical, and it's based on the presentation, which is vision loss, the appearance of the disc, the presence of RAPD. Of course, if there is any doubt, you can do other investigations such as a VER, which may show an increased latency. But again, for diagnosis, usually for optic neuritis, and investigation is not required. We usually do a chest X-ray and electrolytes before we start IV methylprednisolone to be on the safer side. However, if there is an atypical presentation, we need to rule out infective inflammatory causes, and a whole lot of investigations then can be planned if there is a chance that it may not be possibly demyelinating. Currently, the role of MRI is become essential in any presentation of optic neuritis and would be considered mandatory in all patients. However, recurrent optic neuritis, atypical cases, patients with history of neurological problems, patients keen to know about long-term prognosis in children, it is absolutely mandatory. And as Dr. Satya right now talked about, the type of investigation and our instructions to the radiologist are very, very important. So if you think of MS, you need to ask for flare and contrast. So MRI with contrast becomes very essential. If you're thinking of atypical, it becomes very important because you don't want to miss a compressive lesion. So we know that in multiple sclerosis, role of MRI becomes extremely important because a very strong predictor for a subsequent development of multiple sclerosis, and any lesion on the MRI is 3 times more likely to develop multiple sclerosis over time than no lesion on MRI at the time of presentation. So, of course, from a treatment point of view, the ONTT actually gave us the clear guidelines that IV methylprednisolone should be given 1 gram a day for 3 days Although now we sometimes give it to up to 5 days, especially if we suspect NMO or NMO spectrum disorder. We have initially were giving for many years dexamethasone because of its easier availability and its cost. But now, because again, methylprednisolone is easily available, it remains or becomes the first choice for intervention. Along with a neurologist, if there is a major risk of multiple sclerosis or there is a high suspicion that the patient may go on to develop MS, there is a major role to discuss disease modifying agents which may be started to reduce the relapses of optic neuritis and subsequent multiple sclerosis over a period of time. In India, we have seen over time there has been it was very different from what we had observed in ONTT, and we had higher incidence of papillitis, poorer visual outcomes, bilateral involvement, as well as the outcomes overall were less for visual outcome, whereas the association for MS was not as much as seen in the ONTT. And this is a comparison with other Asian studies where similar features were seen. So over time, we have realized that MS in Asia may have a higher percentage of NMO, which is very important. So NMO or neuromyelitis optica has been seen in up to 10% of patients with a presentation of optic neuritis or transverse myelitis. So it's very important for us to consider NMO and work towards it. The importance in NMO is, of course, the NMO serum levels for antibodies of the NMO and the MOG. But even MRI in the beginning can give us a good idea about the possibility of developing NMO or MOG. So again, the role of MRI in understanding or predicting NMO is becoming increasingly important. For NMO, again, the aim is to start off with IV methylprednisolone, often especially as we wait for the NMO test to come. But if the outcomes are poorer, or if it's a strongly positive NMO, you consider for plasma exchange also along with the neurologist. Over time, they would require immunosuppressive therapy and not disease-modifying agents which are given for MS. MOG is another association that we can see, and MOG-associated optic neuritis is also being picked up increasingly, especially after this current COVID outbreak. As I said, the MRI is classically different in these three conditions, and you can see the involvement of larger areas, chiasmal involvement in NMO as compared to a small segment in multiple sclerosis. So the MRI at the very initiation becomes key. So optic neuritis, if there are typical features, you give IV methylprednisolone, see for improvement and follow-up. Does not improve, or there are atypical features to start up with, do a comprehensive workup, may require NMO or MOG involved antibody test, and do a tailored approach based on it. You may require long-term therapy with interferons in MS and immunosuppressives in MOG and NMO. And basically, to conclude, optic neuritis can be isolated or be a part of multiple sclerosis. If there are atypical features, investigate for cause. Baseline MRI is now essential. IV methylprednisolone is important and no more an option. And disease-modifying agents may reduce pace in multiple sclerosis, contraindicated in NMO. Thank you.